Alicia, don't you want to take my phone number? Jonathan moved closer, taking his belongings from the night's scene before he could arrive. The beautiful gift box with its $5 cumpleaños phone number was in my other hand as I passed out. Merely, I was turning off your alarm so that you might sleep in on your cumpleaños, I said, trying to hide the pain in my voice. Tell me about it. Jonathan took the box without even looking at it from his pantalla, adding a thank you note from the mid while he was stealing it without opening it. My heart sank. They had been spared months of this anxiety, cutting off their meals and coffee shops to pay for the luxury they had been staring at. I'm Alicia Morrison. I'm 25 years old, and this was the moment I realized that my 2-year-old marriage may be more than salvageable. Not because of the phone, despite its dubious defense, but more because of the growing difference that had passed between us like a pair of niños. Jonathan hasn't always been this way. He was attentive, responsible, and seemed genuinely interested in my thoughts and concerns when we met at a technology conference 3 years ago. As an IT security professional, I'm accustomed to men feeling intimidated by my technical knowledge or attempting to explain my field to me. An executive in charge of marketing for a software company, Jonathan had been remarkably different. Something had changed in the last few months. Though, worked later, constantly checked his phone, and I felt annoyed when he asked me insensitive questions about his day. Their next presentation magazine had a stress that may get them promoted. I think, this evening, while Jonathan was sleeping, my phone rang, and my best friend Kate texted me. I need to show you something. No te asustes. After reading their message, I saw an image that brought a smile to my face. Utilizing a photo that had been taken 3 weeks prior during our last week's trip to San Antonio. It was Jonathan's profile on an amicable app. La pantalla me mire en mis manos temblando. I am a professional, successful individual, actively seeking a meaningful connection. I am a newcomer, living alone, and full of curiosity about what life has to offer. Solo, nuevo. We celebrated our anniversary last month. I forgot that the baño had opened. I took a deep breath, deleted the message, and pointed my phone down. Sonríe como si nada estuviera mal. Incluso si sentía algo en mi interior. Cuando Jonathan se recuperó del baño. No lo confrontaría. No. First, it was crucial to fully understand the topic at hand. Why luego? After that, I would have to guarantee that I would never have aged. I have always been methodical and practical, which has helped me in my work by identifying security flaws. Mantuve a flawless facade in the past while calmly observing Jonathan's behavior as an investigator of cases. I left this $5 phone, which represented nearly all of my personal gains, open in their vestibule. When asked casually if he liked it, he muttered something about saving it for rare occasions without remembering what the time was. My mind returned to our previous days. How we spent every night talking about our dreams. How I drank coffee in the cama, and listened intently as you explained the technical aspects of my job. Remember our day of casamiento, when I looked on with such devotion that I believed nothing could ever happen between us. For what reason did the man pass? Didn't it exist? Did I just project my hopes to someone who never actually saw me? Jonathan was at work, revising his computer, an action that occasionally seemed unfathomable to me. However, the depressed times were referred to as desperation measures. Even though they had deleted their browser history, they had forgotten about our shared cloud classification's automatic synchronization. Amateur with errors, I found more casamiento applications, hidden email stories, and proof of at least 3 active conversations with other women. He revealed to me, in a particularly painful exchange, that his primary focus was his career. When I asked him why he wasn't alone, he gave me financial explanations. After receiving this promotion, I will give the necessary support. And so it was. Before I downloaded it, I was using it and waiting for him to make progress in his career. The story ended abruptly, but behind my sorrow, something more arose, frio and calculated enojo. I didn't anticipate confronting it immediately, but the idea swiftly crumbled. A frontal confrontation would only result in criticism and perhaps speed up their plans. No, you had to be smarter than that. Understanding the exact plans and gathering indisputable evidence was necessary, since we were spending the evening in silence with only his phone pinging. An idea emerged. Jonathan needed to experience the full weight of his training. He wasn't just a trap. It was necessary to understand exactly what was breaking. "Are you okay with your meal?" Observing the wording underneath the table, I asked. "Huh? Yes. Everything is okay," I replied without looking back. I was working on an important project at work. Algo así. Felizmente. Lore. Hard work. You deserve this promotion. Shortly, he was surprised by my support. "Thank you. It's been a pleasure." Le dije, agarrando la mano. Lo sé. Although it did not grab, it did facilitate touch. However, things will quickly improve, I'm sure of that. Por mi al menos. Lo harían. I wanted to ensure that Jonathan had learned a lesson he would never forget. I said that I needed to do a project at work after receiving the money. Instead, I went to our home office and started doing what I do best, which is creating a digital persona. If Jonathan was looking for connections online, he would provide him exactly what he was looking for. First, you would need photographs. The idea of searching for business images and using actual people's photos seemed unethical and rude to me. Instead, they used artificial intelligence to create carefully crafted images of a woman who would appeal to Jonathan without raising any suspicions. Although she was attractive, her appearance was far from flawless. Professional but appropriate, with subtle aspects of my own characteristics that are subtly altered beyond recognition. Victoria Lawson, a 26-year-old digital marketing specialist, is close enough to their field to have a common field, but not so close that their professional circles overlap. Created detailed information, a consistent personality profile, and even a work history for companies outside of their network. Hoy un golpe suave en la puerta. Era colocando los toques finales en el perfil de Victoria. Jonathan called out to Alicia. "I'm going to bed," without showing any genuine emotion. "Hello. I'll be right over," I said, quickly shutting down my computer. When he joined us in our room, he was already under the covers, ringing his phone. The $5 phone was still there without taking off his clothes. Demonstrating humility, as I drifted off to sleep by his side, I was struck by the paradox of our physical proximity and emotional distance. Your presence at my side that night inspired me to plan my next steps. 6 weeks from now, they would announce the promotion I was waiting for, which would provide me the financial security to go. My timeline remained clear. The next mother left Victoria's profile on the friend application, where Jonathan was more active. All you had to do now was wait to see if they would take the person. You didn't have to wait long. Victoria had received several messages at the time of her arrival, including one from a family member. "My husband. Your profile stood out among the others. Something about your eyes seems familiar. Like we've known it before. My espalda cayó un descanso." Has he completed the picture that the AI generated? However, their follow-up message dispelled my worries. "How many times will I encounter you in another life? I would like to get to know you in this context." I stared at their words, my hand pointing to the reply button. This was my chance to move closer to or complete my plan. My message included a picture of us on our wedding day. We were both filled with promise and hope. Promises that have been broken without a second thought. I turned toward the bottom and started writing. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria and Jonathan developed a relationship that made my stomach stop living. Every woman would look at him on his phone over the desayuno, a song that no longer directed me. Every night, I stayed by his side, knowing that he was sending an altered message to my ego whenever he thought I was sleeping. "You're working so late," Jonathan said one evening. Not out of concern, but it seemed that they were not keeping our home up to their standards. A comprehensive security analysis. Simply react. In actuality, I was in our empty room, creating Victoria's responses and carefully building a relationship with my own husband. No me había perdido la ironía. Like Victoria, I was attentive, impressed by Jonathan's career accomplishments, and respectful of his colleagues, everything he seemed to want. Mire's communication style enthusiastically responded to his interests and shared knowledge strategies about his life that would help him. It's amazing what we have in common, Victoria said one evening. No, I've been in contact with someone for years. Reading those words made me feel really sad. Only 3 years ago, when we first met, he said to me almost the same thing. After 2 weeks of growing in love, Victoria finally asked me, "Your profile states that you were recently married. But occasionally I wonder if you have more history. I'm curious about the experiences he's had in the past." Their response was prompt. "Technically, I'm still at home. But practically, I've left. We have grown distant. Always work. And I don't understand more." I saw the scene. Mis manos filmando con enojo. This was the story he had created. And I was the wife obsessed with the faraway career that brought him to the end of it. No, he had checked our case. Disregarded my attempts to connect. And started looking for my job while still enjoying the financial and domestic benefits of being a spouse. "Why don't you stop it now?" Victoria preguntó. "Tiempo," he replied. "I'm ready for a big promotion that should be announced in a month. Now that you're safe, I can make my move. To establish a new venture. Financial stability is essential." Le agregó. "Even though I didn't intend to meet someone like you, I'm happy that I did. My computer won't let me read anymore. They've reduced our relationship to a financial calculation. A step on their road to something better. I couldn't focus on the next day at work." Tina, my colleague, noted my distraction. "Estás bien? You've been staring at that same code line for 20 minutes. She said, setting a coffee cup on my table. I hesitated before answering. Tina and I got closer over the last year. But nobody had discussed Jonathan's deception or my plan with anybody else. "Kate, we were only dealing with personal matters," I said. Tina looked at my automobile. "I know enough, Alicia, to tell you when something is truly wrong. You don't have to handle it alone." Something in their kind expression broke my resolve. Le dije todo. The friend's profile. The phone number that was open. The fake identity that had been made. And Jonathan's admission that he was waiting for his promotion before leaving me. After finishing, Tina was silent for a while. After that, I said, "What is your final game here? Is it possible to gather evidence for the divorce?" "La cabeza me blay. This will be rather easy. He is not limited to walking according to his own terms. I would like to understand precisely what he is leaving behind and that he is always one step ahead." "It seems like you have a plan," Tina said, looking forward. "Lore lentamente. Lo hago ahora." Victoria suggested a face-to-face meeting at the favorite restaurant on the day that their promotion will be announced. They believed that this day would mark the start of their new life, rather than the end of their existing one. I got a notification on my phone when I got back home. I was intrigued by Jonathan's message to Victoria. I couldn't wait to find out. I feel as though I've been waiting for someone who truly understands me to take over my life. In the Adelante Carretera, love lingered. He had no clue what was about to happen. Over the next 3 weeks, I have meticulously carried out every step of my strategy. As Victoria, he strengthened my relationship with Jonathan by carefully retrieving the images from each incriminating message. He revealed more than he had anticipated. Not only did he reveal their disappointment with our house, but he also laid out plans for their future without me. Once this prometeo materialized, I had enough money to get my own place. He wrote, "I have already looked for a few apartments in the city." With each message, the journey became deeper. They had planned their departure for months while we were trying to save our house, working throughout the time to pay for the $5 billet that couldn't be left unopened. In the meantime, I prepared for my own future. I had a conversation with a divorced attorney, where we discussed our concerns and attempted to divide our finances as best we could. Compiled a dossier of evidence that included not just the conversations with Victoria but also her other friendly profiles and conversations that were discovered. Quisiera should be ready for when everything comes to light. While setting up the table for the evening, Jonathan announced that he would have to work late on the day of the martes. Jonathan made a fantastic presentation for the promotion. The meeting took place on the day Victoria had suggested they meet. Keep my expression neutral. It's going well. I'm happy with the presentation. I was surprised when I received a thank you response. It's significant. Le dije quietly. Sé que lo es. Victoria confirmed their plans to have dinner at Bella Not. their favorite Italian restaurant in the city. Later that evening, knowing that her presentation would conveniently conclude at 6:30, she suggested that she be there at 7 p.m. I can't wait to finally meet you in person. She said, it will be a night to remember. She replied. For once, there was no mention of the incident. Antonio, a member of the gentry, married Bella not. I would become friends with him at the many cumpleaños celebrations and ceremonies that we all share in the happiest moments. Antonio, I would appreciate it if you could explain something unique to me while carefully stating what I need. His initial confusion gave way to understanding as he shared enough information about the situation. I understand, he said at the end. This is unusual, but we can accommodate your request. Sister Morrison, thank you, and more. A mesa with an entrance view was required. But it wouldn't be immediately noticeable. With the closure of the restaurant, I became the last element of my strategy. There had to be something that had an unavoidable influence. Something Jonathan couldn't minimize or explain. At that point, I agreed to the phone. For several weeks, he did not wear his vestidor. The final sign of his indiscretion. Now, it would serve a different purpose. While Jonathan was sleeping that night, he carefully retrieved the phone in its original package. After writing a note in our intimate state, my hand remained solid despite the emotions that were inside of me. El Miércoles arrived with an unusual stillness. I put on my work clothes carefully, applied my maquillaje precisely, and besé Jonathan adios as if we were working on any other day. Good luck with your presentation, she said. The gringo complied, checking his phone and perhaps sending Victoria a message about his upcoming day. At work, I struggled to focus, always floating toward the night that was coming. Jonathan sent me a message around the 5th of the month. The language of my temporary reunion. This is good news for a future discussion. Their promotion. The last piece had fallen in its place. I packed up my belongings and headed to Bellanote, my heart pounding with a mixture of sadness and anticipation. This was not how our story ended. But once we started over, everyone was the same individual who had been exchanging lives for 2 years. I was astonished when Antonio sent me the last items for the month, the printed pictures, the divorce papers, and the box containing the phone. Shra, your message is listed. Morrison, everything is as awful as you asked for. I sat on the esquina, partially hidden by a decorative plant, and waited for my husband to come for a date with a woman who didn't exist. I watched the entrance as they sent a red wine bottle to me without opening it. Even though I maintained an external composure, my heart rate increased each time the door opened. At precisely 6:50 p.m., Jonathan arrived 10 minutes before his date. A cortesia that I hadn't seen in months. In other ways, he appeared different, wearing a fresco cabello and the blue outfit that had been given to him on the last voyage that brought him to his eyes. Even though she knew I liked the blue dress, she had already abandoned it since it was too much work. The effort apparently paid off for Victoria. Antonio and I made our selection at a specific table in the restaurant's center after speaking with the host. The table was elegantly set up for two, with a single red rose in a vase. Jonathan was happy as he went to his room, checked his phone, which was obviously not the one he had given him, and then checked it, without a doubt looking for a message from Victoria. Antonio approached his table with a bottle of champagne in tow. Señor Comidas de la Casa, I understand that the congratulations are in order. Jonathan gave a long sonnet. Thank you, but how did you know about my promotion? As he took a single shot, Antonio uttered a single, critical sigh. Someone thought they could be celebrating tonight. Mireille's expression changed from confusion to anticipation, clearly thinking that Victoria had caused this disappointment. I didn't realize that he would be the only one to be surprised this evening. After Antonio left, Jonathan saw something on the table that had not been there before. A discreetly placed manila envelope on the side of his lap. He hesitated before opening his arm. While examining the contents, it was impossible to see his face clearly, but it was possible to see the precise instant when his body tensed. They parted ways, and he floated because, as far as I knew, there were pictures of him and Victoria, all of their conversations, and proof of their other friendly profiles. At the restaurant, his presence was clearly visible. He was no longer on the list to be discovered. So I moved closer to my desk. His phone rang, revealing an automatically scheduled message from Victoria. Mireille placed her hand beneath the envelope. Mireille opened the manila envelope with her hands, revealing the prepared papers. He had been more generous than he had been in the past. But he still wanted a clean break rather than a fight over death. When Antonio starts a new job, he plans to send Victoria a small bottle of tapada wrapped in expensive paper. Along with the cell phone, Antonio said, "El último parte del reglamento, señor," while holding the bottle at his side. Even at a distance, I can recognize the $5,000 olla tapada, which no one would ever open. Atascada had my handwriting on a small piece of paper. "Will you need this in order to reserve time for your date before the tribunal?" Jonathan broke open the package and eventually discovered the easily disassembled phone. Asustado lo sostuvo. Salí de mi mesa y caminé lentamente hacia él. Considerando cada paso. Many others had started to notice the drama that was unfolding. But I didn't care. This time, the focus was on facing reality rather than public humiliation. The situation unfolded right before their eyes. "Congratulations on your promotion, dije. Mi voz segura." Their eyes widened in disbelief. "Alicia? What is this?" "This is goodbye, Jonathan. I handled the papels. Everything is there. I'm not contesting anything. You want the freedom to start. And now you do." "Eres Victoria," Grito, the performance shining in his eyes. "Have you prepared everything?" "No, Victoria, no soy." Like the husband who believed he had a wife. Victoria does not exist. I found my belt on the table. "You teach me something important. Sometimes what you think you want isn't what you need." Alicia looked nervously at the diners who were staring, saying, "We can talk about this. You're creating a scene." "No," answered coolly. "I'm having a descent. There is a difference." I stood up and paused, gazing at him for the final moment. "To be sure, despite your promises, the film is authentic." It was also the longest and most liberating moment of my life to leave Bellino that night. I took my first deep breath in months. Perhaps even years. As the hot air of an Austin night engulfed my car. No more pretending. No more looking at Jonathan's phone number. No more creating messages like Victoria. And no more asking whether there was any way to save a house that was already dead. Jonathan moved out and left me alone for a few days at Kate's apartment. We agreed on the divorce papers as well. Since my name was on the alquiler, he would leave our shared apartment. "Como?" Kate inquired as she opened her door. Concern appeared on his face. "Just as planned," I replied. My voice was firmer than I had anticipated. He was completely extinct. I brought 2 bottles of wine to his table. "Estás bien?" Examine the question carefully. "Estaba bien?" My case had resulted in a really well-organized confrontation. The planned future has already come to pass. But in a way, I felt as though I could see clearly from the beginning. "Lo haré. Be honest in your response." Since I left the restaurant, my phone had been ringing without warning. Jonathan was calling, sending messages, and asking for a chance to explain. Kate's coffee table shifted, pushing it toward the bottom. "Do you want to hear what he has to say?" Kate preguntó. "I puse la cabeza." Nothing we say could alter the situation. To be honest, we gave them every chance to choose our casamiento. Before this evening, he made his choice. Kate gritted her teeth, understanding in their eyes. "What's going on today, Ahora?" I had a glass of wine while thinking about my future strategy. I have now reconstructed myself in my own terms. That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in months. Free from doubts and disappointment. The herb was cold, but for the first time, it was possible to imagine that it might cure. The following several weeks were a mix of legal reunions, apartment hunting, and piecemeal life reconstruction. When Jonathan returned to our apartment, he was alone with his personal belongings. The $5 view was sitting on the kitchen counter with a note in hand. "No merezca esto." At the very least, we agree. Tina may be an unexpected source of force. Tina recommended me to a cybersecurity project that not only doubled my income but also reaffirmed my love for my work. "Has been playing detective in your personal life," said with a sweet sarcasm. It is necessary to pay for these skills. I found a little but beautiful house in East Austin with a garden. Something I had always wanted. But Jonathan had neglected it. I realized how much I had committed to Adentrarme in their vision of our lives when I planted my first helos of verduras and yerbas. 6 months after that night in Belinote, the divorce was finalized. Jonathan had made several attempts at reconciliation, and his messages progressed from accusations to desperate requests. In his final email, he acknowledged that losing his promotion, apparently because his company had rigorous policies about personal ethics, had caused him to lose sight of what was actually important. However, it was rather late and quite early. I was Antonio, a domingo mañana, in an agricultural market. I immediately recognized you, Mrs. Morrison? After saying this calmly, he was attracted. Do you think this is Mrs. Hayes from New York? Me sonrio. Alicia is doing well, and thanks for your assistance this evening. Nuevo. There are times when people need to face reality head-on. He said, I hope your life has been pleasant since then. It made me pleased to see the fresh verduras in my hands, the tranquility in my heart, and my new reality. Life is not always pleasant, she said, but it's honest when we choose to be honest with each other. And I realized that this was the best gift I had received since the end of my marriage. This gift gave me the courage to face reality, regardless of the pain, and the wisdom to build a life on my own terms.